Okay, so this meeting is being recorded, so for transcription purposes. I'm just saying that because it told me to announce that. Okay, so I will start with the roll. Alcova Heights,
Alcova Heights present.
thank you. Arlington East.
And could I ask a quick question?
Sure.
We had Laura a while ago was helping me, but we're trying to get our traffic circles cleaned up, and we don't have water to our traffic circles. And we called and talked to a couple people at the county who told us that we have to set up an account and we have to pay for the water for the traffic circles. And I was wondering if any of the other neighborhoods have had to do that, because Laura found our old contracts or agreements and they say nothing about paying for the water.
Laura, is that something that we want to follow up with them on?
So how about we hold discussions till the end,
Okay.
so that we can get through roll call, or
Okay.
if anyone who has dealt with that already wants to reach out afterwards, or maybe put something in the chat about it, we can do that.
And also, if you're not speaking, please just put it on mute so that we can all hear. Okay, thank you. I will continue with the roll. Arlington East Falls Church.
Present.
Arlington Forest.
And would you mind stating your name when you say present? Thanks.
John Wilson.
Thank you. Arlington Forest. Arlington Heights.
Eileen Janis, present. And I just want to say that the Virginia Department of Transportation notified us and invited us to a meeting August 24th that they are planning to do some major safety improvements on Route 50 between Glebe Road and Washington Boulevard. And so I'm particularly interested in hearing from Ashton Heights, Lyon Village, and Penrose, if they also have heard about this effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Janice. So when we get to those neighborhoods, if you want to respond, please feel free to do so at that time. Arlington Mill. Okay, Arlington Ridge. Arlington View.
Carter Eccles here.
Thank you. Arlingwood. Aurora Highlands.
David Littman here.
Thank you, David. Ballston, Virginia Square. Okay. Barcroft.
Don Bennett here by phone.
Thank you. Bellevue Forest. Bluemont. Boulevard Manor.
Hi, this is Phil Klingelhofer, present.
Thank you, Phil. Buckingham.
Bernie, you need to unmute.
Right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Somebody could hear me. Present.
Okay, thank you, Bernie.
Can you hear me well? Am I loud enough?
You're,
I can't hear Bernie.
Bernie,
We
we
still
can
can't-
barely hear you.
Barely hear me? Okay, I'll do somebody else.
I think you can tell he's here, guys.
Okay.
Yep.
I may be-
Okay, thank you, Bernie.
So-
Cherrydale.
Harry Specter.
Claremont. Clarendon Courthouse, Columbia Forest.
John Kirkpatrick here.
Thank you, John. Columbia Heights.
Sarah McKinley here.
Thank you, Sarah. Dominion Hills.
Kristen Gilly here.
Thank you, Kristen. Donaldson Run. Okay. Douglas Park.
Hello, this is Andy Price.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Burlington. Okay. Foxcroft Heights.
Lisa McAvoy here.
Thank you, Lisa. Glen Carlin.
Kathy Reeder here.
Thank you, Kathy. Green Valley.
Bridget Obikoye here, and I'd also like to address the person who asked about the Arlington Boulevard Smart Scale project. The correspondence was sent out to Buckingham, Ashton Heights, Lyon Village, Penrose, and Alcova Heights, and to residences specifically. It was also broadcast on the county website, and it is recorded, so anyone who missed it can go check it out. And there's a comment period that's going on now that ends on September 28th. So if you're interested in Arlington Boulevard and what's going on there, please go check out the video and provide comments.
Thank you, Bridget. Highland Park, Overly Knolls.
Cliff McCready here.
Okay, thank you, Cliff. Highview Park.
Tom Sitzler's here.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Leeway Overly. Okay, Long Branch Creek. Okay, Lyon Park. Lyon Village. Madison Manor. Okay. Maywood.
Anthony Matterall here from Maywood.
Okay, thank you, Anthony. Old Dominion. Okay. Old Glebe.
Howard Slotky here.
Thank you, Howard. Penrose.
This is Penrose. I'm Darcy Cuffman. And regarding the question about Route 50, our neighborhood association president receives those notices. After the meeting, I will ask him if he received it and if he will forward that to the neighborhood for appropriate response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Darcy. Radnor, Fort Myer Heights. Rock Spring.
Jerry Paul here.
Thank you, Jerry. Shirlington.
Jenny Ferris here.
Hey, Jenny, thank you. Terra Leeway Heights. Waverly Hills.
Alex
Bill, you were on mute.
Yeah, Bill Braswell's here for he was here for Terra Leeway Heights. Alex Luchinitzer, I'm here for Waverly Hills.
Okay, got Terra Leeway Heights, and thank you for Waverly Hills. Waycroft Woodlawn. Okay. Westover Village.
Pleasant here.
Okay, thank you, Audrey. Williamsburg.
Hi, Jonathan Levine here.
Thanks, John. Woodmont. And Yorktown.
David Herring here.
Thank you, David. Okay, thank you.
Hi, this is Lauren Bailey from Arlington Ridge.
I just want to know if you can hear me now. This is Bernie Byrne.
Yes, Bernie, we can hear you, and also Arlington Ridge, we have you as well.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, Kathy, you want to carry us through the next item on the agenda?
Sure. Thanks, Chipway. Could I just ask everybody to please mute your microphones? We've got a little bit of background interference here. Okay, thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much for attending our first virtual session we've had in a while. Appreciate we have good, strong attendance, and we have a good presentation that I'm sure you'll be interested in hearing tonight. Our first item on the agenda is to approve the June and July minutes. We haven't been able to have a quorum the last couple of hybrid meetings, so we have these to catch up on. So I'll ask for a motion on the June 2023 minutes to approve those.
Motion.
Okay, and second on that?
Second.
Okay, any discussion on that, including corrections or adjustments on the June 2023 minutes? Okay, let's go ahead then, and all those in favor of approving the minutes, go ahead and raise your hand and vote there.
Oh, I see.
You guys get an okay count there?
So far it's 23, looks like, I
Okay.
believe. 24, 25. Okay.
Okay, I have a couple people who aren't voting, Bernie and Bill, or did you intend to approve?
I'm approving. I don't know how to do it. I raised my hand. What
Okay.
should I do after that?
Okay, good. We'll just count you. That's good.
Bill Braswell says yes.
Okay,
Can't figure out where the snap.
so you guys got a count of them?
Yeah, I think we're at 26 if
Okay.
I'm not mistaken.
All right. Can
Adding in those
everybody
two.
lower their hands then? You can click on the raise button, then you should see a lower your hand. Okay, anybody opposed to the minutes, approving the minutes? Okay, so we still have some people with hands raised. Tell us if you're truly want to oppose the minutes. We have David, Howard, Kristen, Bernie, and Audrey still with their hands raised. Do you intend to record opposition to the minutes, or?
No opposition. I don't know what's going on
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
No, I can't figure out what click means what.
Just click the button. There's a little hand at the top right hand of the screen where it says raise.
Yeah, I know that.
I'm going to lower people's hands. I can lower people's hands.
Okay, thanks. Okay, any abstentions on the June 2023 minutes? Okay, we'll consider those minutes approved. Thank you all. And moving to the July 2023 minutes, all those in favor, or actually, sorry, let me get a motion first to approve the July 2023 minutes.
Motion.
Okay,
Second. Second.
Okay.
Kathy, I just have one correction. I did receive something from Steve in Douglas Park, just a typo at the end of the July minutes, and so I did forward that on to Hannah to correct.
Okay, great. Any other corrections? Okay, let's go ahead then and vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes for July, hit the little raise your hand button at the top right.
It looks like we're at about 26.
Okay.
27.
Okay, great. And then go ahead and lower your hands. And could I get everybody to get on mute, please? Okay. All those opposed to approving the July 2023 minutes, go ahead and raise your hands again if you are opposed. I think, see, Bill, I'm assuming you're not opposing, right?
That's correct. I'm trying to
Okay,
figure.
okay, no votes in opposition. Anybody abstaining from the minute, approving the minutes? Okay, we'll consider the July 2023 minutes approved as well. Thank you all. And the next item, we have officers and staff report. I think I'll go ahead and maybe we'll just follow the sequence in the agenda. One is the ArNAC calendar, which is something we wanted to talk about as officers. And just one, again, thank you guys for participating tonight. It's an important presentation on kind of a major process area that we've been considering. The executive committee has met. We've collected a lot of input from you guys. So it's an important part of the implementation framework. And David will talk about that. But also want to mention that coming up in October, we'll either have a hybrid or an in-person meeting, and we'll be discussing recommendations for the point system update, which David will refer to a little bit tonight. And we'll also have an update on the staff's review of the expanded project types discussion. We talked about a couple of months ago, spent a lot of time taking input on that and providing that back to staff to act upon. So we'll be getting an update on that next month. And along with that, we'll have another presentation by David on the project selection process for non-capital projects, which a lot of the expanded project types would fall into that category. So important meeting coming up in October. And then also we're getting to that point in the year, starting with the November meeting, where we'll need to get a nominating subcommittee and chair for officers coming up for next year. And also in November, we'll have a project evaluation team and staff recommendation for the fall funding round. And David will talk a little bit more about that in this presentation tonight. So important meetings coming up in October and November. And then December, of course, is we would be announcing names of officer candidates. And the most important thing, of course, is the funding round approval by ArNAC in December. So we'll definitely have some important things coming up. So when we get to if we have a hybrid or an in-person meeting, just encourage everybody, please attend in person if you possibly can, because we'll need to achieve a quorum in order to conduct some of that business. And then I'll just see if either John or David wanted to add anything to our officers report.
Not at the moment.
No, Kathy.
Okay. And if not, let's go ahead then with, I think you guys, ANP, the program wants to talk about staffing.
Yes, thank you, Kathy. So I just want to give you guys an update on our staffing. As you know, we had 2 retirements, and then obviously we had Tim, who departed for the Parks Department. So we have we've hired made an offer to, and hired our associate planner, Anika Chowdhury, who currently is in the comprehensive planning division of Arlington County. So she's moving from comprehensive planning and will be starting with us on the 25th. She'll be replacing Angela Marshall and be working on the funding round and also on neighborhood plans in addition to projects. She has about 8 years experience in working with Arlington County, of which at least about 2 is in comprehensive planning, and I think about 4 or 5 in current planning, and then a couple of years in zoning. So very knowledgeable of Arlington County government, very knowledgeable of our planning processes. And so we're looking forward to having her join us on September 25th. Also on the 25th,
we'll. Her name, please, Chikwe.
Okay, Anika.
The name, please.
Yes, Anika Chowdhury. Okay.
Could you put her name and contact information in the chat for us, Chikwe?
Okay, so she's still in the planning division at the moment, and so she won't be actually starting with us until September. So I can send out her contact information once she officially kind of gets seated. Yep.
There we go. Thank you.
Thank you. And so, and the final announcement is we have a new replacement for Tim in the supervisor position. It'll be Laura Simpson, who I think some of you may know, and she's coming to us from right across the hallway, so to speak. And so we're glad Laura, she's done an outstanding job in guiding the ANP and also ArNAC, and working with the executive committee and developing the implementation framework, and keeping us moving forward in terms of our project workload. So we're glad to have her take that role. And obviously she'll be transitioning during the next couple of weeks, but the official start date obviously is September 25th as well. And so now we have the final task of backfilling for her position, which we are actually starting to work on the job announcement for that now. And so hopefully we can get that out before the end of the month, or at least by early October. And so at that point, if we get someone on board, maybe in the November timeframe, we'll be fully staffed, which is great as we go into the funding round and then certainly into the spring. So again, thank you to ArNAC and the executive committee for being patient with us as we kind of continue to kind of staff up to meet the challenges ahead. Thank you again for being patient with us, and we look forward to the great work to come with our new team members.
Thanks, Chickway. And I just want to say first, congratulations to Laura. We're thrilled to have you continuing on with us and being in the leadership position on the A&P side. Very good news. And also Chickway, and congratulations on getting that other position filled. That will be wonderful to have a person starting there, and good luck filling that final position. We'll be very happy, as you will as well, to be fully staffed. It's been a difficult time, and I think there should be some kind of bylaws we institute that say retirements can't happen except according to a schedule. You know, can't have simultaneous retirements anymore. So, but anyway, congratulations for filling all those positions. The next item is program updates on the CIP budget and responses to ArNAC questions. And I think that's you guys, Laura and Chickway.
Yep. So Steve, do you want to pull up the slides for that?
Yes.
Okay. So we have two things we're going to talk about just as updates. And if all of you recall, towards the beginning of the year, David had put together the sort of an annual calendar of when we would be doing regular reporting into you all. And we had actually hoped to start that in this past July, but we weren't able to do that for a variety of reasons, but we're going to start doing that tonight. So this is the first time we're kind of trying out doing this. And what we'd like to do is keep this more of just sort of a summary. These are the projects, this is where they are, so that this doesn't end up dominating our time this evening. And any particular questions, more in-depth conversations, we hope that everyone will reach out to their A&P planner that's assigned to the project. And if there are projects that you have questions on that are more specifically, such as the first priority list or ones that just aren't showing up here, please reach out to me. And we can have a conversation about that, and I can let people know where other projects are, because we have some that we aren't actively working on right at the moment. They're on hold for a variety of reasons that you know, I'm happy to go over with people individually. But so this is the project list of where we are right now. This first category is in planning, which we're defining as a clipboard petition has been passed, and we are working on doing the preliminary design. This usually results in about a 15 to 30% design set that then we do the final petition with the neighborhood on, and then assuming it passes that, we work towards the upcoming funding round. So this is a combination of ones that are in the works for both this upcoming funding round. We hope that they all pass the petition for the fall funding round. And then also one of these is currently slated for going towards the spring funding round. So the first one is North Pollard Street. And that one is in the process of final petitions being collected. We should hopefully have all of those final petitions tabulated. And in the next couple weeks, we should know whether it's passed its final petition, and hopefully it does. This is a street improvement project that we hope to bring to the fall funding round. Woodstock Park is also being worked on by Aaron, who is one of the DPR landscape architects, who is handling some of the projects while since Kathy Von Brito had left. And this one that will be going for a neighborhood meeting in hopefully later this month, and then that one the Civic Association would be voting on, and hopefully that passes, and that one will be going for the fall funding round. North Quebec Street concept design is being worked on right now. Also street improvement project. That one would most likely go through final petition in October. And we hope that one also passes, and we'll bring that to the funding round. Kent Street, that one has already passed final petition, and the cost estimates are being prepared now, as well as more complete 30% design drawings. So that one will definitely be moving forth for the funding round. North Montague Street, that one is in the process of going through final petitions, and in the next 1 to 2 weeks, we should know whether that one is passed, and assuming that one does, that will also go for the fall funding round. And then 18th Street, that one, we don't quite have the survey work completed, but we're supposed to be getting that in the next couple weeks, I believe. I don't have a definitive one that's going to be done. But that one is currently, we're looking towards having that one for the spring funding round. So then moving on to the next category, which is in design. We have Thrifton Hills Park, and that one is, we're currently dealing with invasive species removal. And there's a purchase order for that. So for these two next park projects, Thrifton Hills and Bailey's Branch, since Kathy left, right now those two are assigned to another DPR landscape architect. Jeanette is doing that for us. And for Bailey's Branch Park, she's working towards a concept design. And she's preparing for a first engagement with residents on that, to kind of talk through how the circulation might work in going into and out of the park, as well as kind of what the ideas are that are priority, and what are they going to be able to do as far as getting the design put together. Next, 35th Street North. That one, they are working, the engineers are working towards 90% design, and they are looking to have a final design meeting for residents in late fall. So November, December timeframe is what they're shooting for. 7th Street South, 90% design drawings have been started, and that one we're also looking to have a final design meeting with residents in the winter. 15th Street North, that one, the drawings are at 100%, and the sign plans have been done, and they're working on the acquisition of temporary easements. South Buchanan Street, those, that's a streetlight project. So the basic design has been done by the engineers, and They will be sending that to Dominion so that Dominion can do the construction drawing, since Dominion will be handling the lights themselves, but we continue to monitor it.
Laura, sorry to interrupt. Steve, could you scroll the list up a little bit so that we can see the rest of the page? Thank you.
There we go. Thanks, Chikwe. So they'll be going to Dominion sometime this fall. South Manchester Street, we are working on the 60% comments that came back from internal review, and we're starting to work on the temporary easement agreements. 6th Street North and North Edison, another intersection improvement project.
Okay, that was a little too fast. Can you scroll it back down so we could see the line she's on? Thanks. One more, I think.
It's there. No, it's there. It's, do you see Z315, 6th Street North and North Edison? It's showing up on my screen.
Thanks.
Eileen.
It's this one here, right?
Nope. Next one.
Bluemont. It's on Bluemont is the one.
There you go. That's the one we're talking about right now. Intersection improvement. So that one, the drawings are at 100% complete. They have made the rounds for internal review and comments, and those are being addressed right now. And then once they are, once all of those 100% comments are completed, then it will go around for signature to be prepared for a permit set. North Monroe Street, the 90% drawings have been submitted and they're being reviewed right now. Easements are being worked on for temporary easements are being worked on for that one. And then the next category we have is preparing for construction, which is 16th Street North in Westover Village. So this one, we're very happy to say it is below the $500,000 threshold so that we're able to use the on-call contractors. So that's, documents are being prepared, permits, and construction is anticipated. We originally would have been able to do construction for this one probably like late fall, early winter. But in this one, the intersection, this is by sort of the Westover commercial area with the, I'm trying to remember the name of it. What's the pizza place right there, Hannah?
The Italian store.
The Italian store, thank you. So late fall, December, that's when all the shops are incredibly busy. So they have asked that we wait until after their Christmas rush. So this is anticipated to start in early 2024. So then in construction, we have 11th Street North in Danville. That park project, that one's getting close to being done. The construction got extended for a little bit longer due to some electrical issues. And once that kind of gets done, they're going to be starting new plantings in October. Hillside Park, they are working on signage and planting plan for that one. 12th Street and South Scott, that intersection improvement, that one is just about completely done. The hardscape, everything was completed, and right now we're doing a little refinement to some of the planting areas. And then the last one, South Abingdon Street, that one, the physical construction is done. They're just addressing closeout for that one. And that's our entire list.
Okay, now I think, Steve, you're going to talk about just the bond, correct?
Looks like we might have a question.
Oh, we do?
Bridget?
Hi, Laura, where can I find that project list online? Is it online?
This is not. So we, Bridget, we don't have everything kind of worked out with the website right now in terms of what we're going to be posting and what we aren't going to be posting. So Eileen had also asked, and this was one of the questions I was going to try to address as well. We're going to have a project list, and we are going to have a first priority list. We just right now don't have those posted. But Bridget, for the moment, in terms of each of the projects that we went over, they have all the projects have their own webpage that you can access through the main ANP webpage. There'll be a link for all the CIP projects, and you can click on that. We also just recently went through them and have been updating the status for all the projects. I haven't reviewed them myself just to, confirm what kinds of comments we've got on it. But the list is definitely there, or I should say a link to each of the projects is there right now.
Okay, one final question, sorry. So on the capital improvement project, is there a way I can cross-reference like the project numbers here? Do they correspond to the project numbers in the CIP list? I just want to make sure I'm comparing apples to apples.
So we don't put the project numbers because that's more for the construction end of it.
So the Z293 for 11th at Danville, is it always going to be called the same thing on the CIP list?
Yes, it is. It's the same number. Z293 is the same. Yep.
Okay,
it's
perfect.
Same across the board.
Okay, that way I can cross-reference. Thank you.
Yep.
That's helpful. Okay.
It looks like Eileen has a question.
So can
Go
you
ahead,
clarify? Can you clarify? Are you saying the ones that are in planning and in design have a web page?
So we have a capital improvement project list that has links to all the projects that have been funded. So the ones that are on this list that we're going over with you all are not funded projects. So those are not.
Construction must be funded.
The ones in planning, I think, are not funded. So these are in planning, so you couldn't find them there. But the one in design and construction, you can find them there.
Right, but in order to find them, I would have to know what their Z number is and know that they're an ArNAC project. I mean, if I'm interested in the ArNAC projects, how do I find them without this list?
Okay, so Eileen, if you're available tomorrow, how about we have a call and I'll walk you through how the specifics on how you get to it. If you go to the program webpage, there is a link to our capital improvement.
Hey Laura, Jenny just added the link to the chat. So if there's a link now in the chat that has all those capital projects.
Perfect. Thank you. So, and they're done by name, Eileen.
And I just want to chime in one more time. So, because I think I'm a little confused. So you're saying that the CIP list does not reflect all that's here, and there's nowhere that all of these are listed, right? Unless they are in design or construction.
So the capital improvement project list that we have on the website, it goes by the name of the project. That's the way it's currently done. Doesn't mean we can't change it. This is just the way it's currently done. So for instance, 15th Street North project, which is Z313, you would look it up as 15th Street North. So the Z numbers are just internal
that I
numbers
understand. I want to just, what I'm asking is, so there is no list that anywhere that reflects these projects here unless they're funded for construction or design. I just want to make sure I understand that. Because if I need to screenshot this list to make sure I have all the projects.
So
what I'm trying to get to.
We're going, yeah, so we're going to start having the list on, Bridget, but we don't currently have this on.
So right now, Bridget,
for today,
yes, the only category that's not on that list is in planning, right, Laura?
Right, and we can
That's
also
correct.
send this out afterwards.
And
So that everybody, all ArNAC representatives have it.
And let's be clear, the in planning are not approved projects, so they're not real.
Correct. Yeah, thank you, David.
I would just like to say that I would like it to be sent out so we have it. It used to be on our website, this list with the money against it, right? And that was a whole spreadsheet that we've had there for years and then disappeared. So,
so Eileen, there are some things that I don't have answers to because it's not something that has been done for a while. And so think of it as we're setting things up to make it function well for everybody moving forward, but we're kind of in a transition process right now. So please try to be patient with us because we want to make it work for everybody. We want the information to be clear for everyone. We're just not there yet. But as far as sending this list out to you all, yes, we can do that so that every ArNAC representative has it.
Great, thanks.
Okay.
Could you tell me your email address?
I'm sorry, say again.
Yes, this is for Laura Simpson. Could you tell me your email address?
My email? Yes.
Yeah, because I want to ask for more information.
L Simpson. We can post it as well, but L Simpson at arlingtonva.us.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Looks like Harry has a question as well.
Yeah, hi Laura. So I wasn't gonna mention this until you were gonna send this out to everybody. But just for clarification, on Quebec Street, it says it's going to 18th Street, and I think it should be going to 20th Street. 20th Street.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Which one?
Quebec Street, Cherrydale.
On the in planning.
That's probably the old name. It just never got updated.
Right. So
Yes,
I just wanted to make sure when you
thank
send it out,
Yep.
otherwise people will get confused when they see the.
You're right.
big-
You're absolutely right. Thank you. Yep, we'll make sure that gets corrected.
You see, Eileen, did your question get answered?
I'm glad they're going to send it out. I am trying to look on the website and see where the link is so that I can find it when I'm actually at the website.
So how about we do that? Eileen, are you available tomorrow?
Not all day.
Okay.
What time?
Let me. Yes, let's. Okay. Let's do it. And I'll go through all that because there are other questions I know you've had too that I wanted to address directly with you as well. So that would be fantastic. Let's do that. Okay. Thank you.
And David Herring has a question.
Yeah, so the question I've got is that, the last funding round, we reached all the way down to project number 12 on the points list and then jumped to 23. This list that's in planning does seem to be those projects that are at the top of the current point list. They're the most recent version that we've all gotten, which is a good thing. I mean, that's what the point system is designed to do, is to let everybody get their projects funded in order in which they survive in the queue. But Tim's explanation in the past funding sessions for dipping so far down is that several of these at the top of the list just were not, the neighborhoods lost interest or they weren't.
Lots of reasons.
Lots of different reasons. Does this mean that these now are back alive? Or are they still at risk of dying? for lack of.
We'd have to go through that list where we're not ready to like sit down and do the, this project has this going on. This one has this going on. This one's on hold because of this. And like, we don't have that prepared for tonight, David.
And that's, we've got ours at number 8, which
yes,
there's one, at least one on here that's, lower than ours.
So, you have the list and our goal is to start at the very top and tick them off one by one as we go down. But, for lots of reasons, projects aren't ready. Another issue we had for many years was the moratorium for doing lighting. So a lot of those projects just kind of languished at the top.
Laura, we're going to talk about that when I do the presentation. We're going to talk about a lot of these issues. So,
all right, that's So
I'm anxious to get to that part of the conversation. Steve, can you scroll down to the bottom of this? I wanted to see your numbers at the very bottom. The budget, how much is left of the bond.
Steve's going to go over that next as soon as we finish. As soon as everyone's done with questions here.
Yeah, you're talking about the money part?
He is, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's gonna be next.
Okay, so someone else has a hand raised.
Yeah, it's Eileen. Do you have a question still?
No, sorry, it's not on my screen anymore. I didn't realize it was up.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's move on. Steve, all yours.
All right. So the other question popped up in last meeting was, how much money we have left to fund a new project. And so this is a snapshot of, the program and issued bond balance, which an issued bond means the bond amount that has been approved by the voters, but not yet sold. So we sell bond based on a cash flow analysis that how much money we need every year. The reason is because when we sell a bond, we pay interest. So we don't want to pay interest for the money that we're not using. So we have about $14 million unissued, unsold bond so far. But out of that, 8.7 is already committed to projects. So we have remaining balance of $5.3 million for new projects to fund. So this is going to be used. This part of this is going to be used by the coming the December funding session. So other than that, this is the balance we have. If you have any questions, I can answer.
Okay. Thank you, Steve and Laura.
I think Eileen's got her hand up.
Okay.
Sorry, can you remind me, will there be a new bond on the ballot this year?
In 24. Not this year, next year.
Thanks, Steve.
Sure.
Okay.
Thanks. Don has his. Sorry, Kathy.
Don
has his.
Go ahead, Don.
Okay, yeah, the question is, how much of that unallocated 5.3 million, how much would we expect to be allocated in December?
I can answer that. We don't know yet, Don, because we're still waiting to see which projects are going to be passing petitions. So there's a bit more work we have to do, as well as some more of the cost estimates coming in. So it's too early to tell that.
Yeah, so in the coming couple of months, we might know, the cost estimates on those projects that are ready to be funded. So by then we'll let you know, how much of the 5.3 we're going to use for the next funding session.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks. Okay, I'm ready to move on. You have the proposed fall funding round as a topic here.
I think Bill has a question.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Bill.
Bill, you're
Bill,
on mute.
you're on mute.
I'm
There.
trying to figure this stupid machine out. We are going to allocate 5.3 million in the December funding round. After that, when do we go to the board and ask for more funding for neighborhood conservation?
Sorry, Steve, go ahead.
So that's a good question. So the next bond year is next year, which is 2024. So by July, the board is going to approve another bond for us, which the voters are going to vote on November 24. So starting from, I would say January, February, it's better for us, for anyone to go to the board and ask for additional funding. As you said, we will know, how much we're going to have left over from the 5.3 by the end of December after funding session.
So how are we going to come up with our recommended bond amount to send up through the system?
I think we'll be addressing that early next year, Bill.
Yeah.
So how about 100 million to start off with?
I just wanted to make one quick comment. We don't necessarily know that we're going to allocate all of the 5.3 million in the December funding round. We don't know that yet.
Okay, so what would we do if we didn't allocate it all? What would we do with the remainder?
We could use it for future projects, for future funding rounds, whatever's left over.
Okay. Yeah. Does it matter to the powers that be above us that we have unallocated funds? Will they say, well, you haven't spent X. Maybe you don't need as much as you need the next 2 or 3 years.
Yes and no. And the yes is because, they have to see first how much money we have unallocated when we ask a new money. So on that, again, if we show them, how much we need, how many projects we have, and a bulk amount, how much money we need. So those numbers has to be done. So let's say if we're looking for $40 million, and then if you have $2 million, then the ask is going to be 12. So it depends how many projects we're anticipating to fund, and then in a bulk amount, how much money we're looking for those projects to be approved.
So then what we need to do is to make sure that we put forward a number of projects for our best interest in going into the bonding cycle.
Yes, totally agree with that, Bill.
Yep.
Okay, so can we borrow some money from somebody and just spend like wild madly?
Good question.
I think that's a rhetorical question. So
yes, it is.
We need to move on here.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Eileen, do you still have a question?
Yeah, I just thought this money had to cover the June funding round for 2024 and the December funding round for 2024, right? Even if they vote a bond, we don't get the money until 2025.
That's correct. Yeah. This covers December, and then if we have something left for June funding session, that will cover that too. But also, there are some projects that we've completed, and then we are in a closeout process, so we might have some savings on those projects that we're going to disclose in the future as well.
Right, but basically, if we spend all this in December, then we don't have any money for June 2024. Is that right?
It might not be zero, as I said. We might have some savings from completed projects. So that will be, it. So you're right. I mean, we need to have a bond in this next November 24. Before that, we don't have anything else to be allocated.
Thanks.
Yep.
Okay, we probably better move on. As David indicated, he's got a pretty meaty presentation for us. So.
Yep. Okay. So do you want me to move that presentation?
You want, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Okay.
Oh, that's the end of it. So we need to go to the cover page. Okay, can everybody hear me okay? So actually the discussion tonight has been very interesting because it kind of documents why we're putting together this project selection process, because a lot of the questions have indicated some confusion about how we do it and how we justify it and that sort of thing. So this presentation is based on feedback we've gotten from you, from the surveys we did a couple months ago, questions you've raised during meetings and in chats, questions you've provided to the staff. So a lot of your input is part of this presentation. And we're also trying to address the findings and concerns from the program review. So we want a process that does that as well. So we can go to the next page. So the first thing is that project selection is not about picking winners and losers. Ideally, we would fund every project if it was qualified, but we don't have that kind of ideal environment. So we need to find some way to prioritize how we choose projects. One thing to make clear is, and it's come up tonight, there is a misperception sometimes that the points are used to select the projects. The points are really used to prioritize the order in which projects should be evaluated for qualification and selection. So as somebody said, ideally we would pick the top points on the projects with the most points on the list, but that doesn't always work out because those projects aren't always able to be qualified for funding. And the project selection is also about supporting participation in the program as broadly as possible, serving all populations across the county, and just basically improving the livability of our neighborhoods. And those kind of things were taken from the report as the program review. Next page, please. So for capital projects, which is what we're talking about, these are CIP projects that we're talking about in this presentation. There are three factors that affect project selection: the points, what we're going to call qualification factors, and external constraints. So go to the next chart, please. So on the left, what we're really looking, we asked you to comment on the points system that we currently have. And the most frequent comment was wanting to add categories. And those categories were related to types of projects, like sidewalk project to a park, or a safety project, or a stormwater project. So what became clear when we got through that is that we need to make points more focused on categories that emphasize encouraging neighborhoods to participate in the program and ensuring fairness in the distribution of projects. We want them to be as objective as possible, and those are the kinds of categories where you can objectively assign points. And as I said, the point should be a determination of priority in the queue and not a priority for selection. So the points that are highest, the projects with the highest number of points in the queue would then proceed on to the next phase of selection if they could. The chart on the right, which I know is hard to read, but is a list of potential points categories based on the feedback we got from you. And it shows if they are currently a points category and what the points are for those categories. So what we're going to do is ask you to look at these proposed points categories and kind of rank order them or put values next to them in the proposed value column. We'll probably narrow down the number. Some of these categories may be duplicative or overlap. But you can see if you go through them, most of them focus on encouraging participation in the program and ensuring projects are distributed equitably among neighborhoods. So, so there is an action item out of this for you, which I will summarize again at the end of the presentation. But this is how we would like to approach points. Next chart, please. Qualification factors then look at how projects support program, county, and neighborhood goals and priorities, and how ready they are to be executed. They're a little more subjective in nature. You know, how do they impact relative to the needs and priorities? How strongly does the neighborhood support the project? What's the cost of the project? Do we have a good mix of project types in any given funding round? And are there some complexities? On the right side shows the kind of categories we would consider under qualification factors. This list is the bullets under each of these categories: equity, environment, safety, mix of project types, neighborhood support, cost and budget. The bullets under them are just examples of what we will consider when considering whether a project is ready to go forward and whether it's qualified. And Laura's mentioned, as she went through some of the InDesign projects, she was mentioning these kinds of things that they're still working on to see if a project can be ready for funding. So this is the meat of what we will be looking at each funding round for the projects that are at the top of the points list. Okay, next chart. As Laura mentioned, there are some external constraints that factor into this. And as we just talked about at length, budget is one of them. And there are other factors that can affect our ability to carry out a project. Overall budget constraints, staff resources within the county, things like code restrictions or county policy review initiatives. You remember we had the streetlight policy review, which held up all our streetlight projects, or possible neighborhood issues such as an inactive civic association. So that's another factor we have to consider on whether to propose a project for funding. Okay, next chart. So this is the nominal project evaluation process we're thinking of. That before the beginning of each fiscal year, the executive committee will appoint a 6-person project evaluation team to be led by the vice chair. This would kind of replace what had been the points team. Even though it says teams will be chosen by lot, actually we've had some further thinking about that. And what's important is that the teams be balanced and reflective of the county. So we're going to look at the neighborhoods by geography, economics, and other factors, and try to put together some teams that reflect some balance across the county. For example, if we did it by lot, we might wind up with 5 civic associations from Columbia Pike on that thing, and that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for an equitable balance of interest from north and south, dense and less dense, more residential, and that kind of stuff. Each ArNAC member can only serve once during any CIP cycle. At the beginning of each funding round, the county staff will identify the proposed projects with the highest point totals for evaluation. The number of projects identified will be based on budgetary considerations, possible external constraints. The number can change as projects move along, so we could add a project or subtract a project. But basically, the projects that Laura described as InDesign, for example, are the projects we're considering for this funding round. And the staff kind of picked those projects out earlier in the cycle. If for some reason a project with a high point total cannot proceed for some reason to evaluation of qualification factors, then the county staff will brief the ArNAC and document it. For example, if there's a code issue or a policy issue or something which prevents the project from being considered, we'll document it and we'll tell the ArNAC. Next slide. So what the process will be is that the project evaluation team, once it's stood up, will be briefed by the county staff at the beginning of the funding round on projects under consideration. So that would be, like, again, referring to what Laura described as the in-design projects for this funding round. That would be a briefing early in the funding round in a little more depth than she gave the larger group tonight, in a little more depth for the smaller project evaluation team. Then, as our calendar says, we're going to hold a pre-funding round meeting in November and May. And prior to that, the project evaluation team will meet again with the staff to go over the projects in some detail that are being considered for funding and identify any issues. And again, this does not preclude projects being added or subtracted as we move along. So that would probably happen in late October, early November, or late April, early May for a spring funding round. Then at the pre-funding round ArNAC meeting, the county staff and project evaluation team will brief the full ArNAC on projects being proposed for funding and projects that might still be proposed. And that gives the ArNAC an opportunity to identify any concerns or issues for the staff and the team to consider before the project can be approved. So rather than wait till we're voting on a project in December or May or June rather, and raising an issue then and then scrambling around to redo motions and do that, we'll do it the month before and we can raise those issues a month earlier. So, and I'm not to pick on Bernie, but Bernie always has an issue on parks projects about what kind of plantings and stuff like that. Well, now instead of doing that during the funding round meeting, we can do that much earlier in the process. Then the project, after the pre-funding round meeting in November and May, the project evaluation team and the staff will develop final recommendations to make to the ArNAC at the funding round and prepare a project booklet, which will include the justification for why we're proposing these projects for funding. And if a project can't be recommended because of an external constraint or some other factor, that will be identified. And then at the funding round, we'll have our normal kind of voting on the projects. I know people are always concerned about how much work this means for them. The way it looks like in this process is it would be for the project evaluation team, probably 3 meetings, one early in the funding round to just identify the projects which are being considered, then one prior to the pre-funding round, and then one prior to the funding round. So maybe 5 or 6 hours of your time during a 6-month period. And you do it once. We will rotate the teams each funding round. So, okay, next slide. So, next steps. We think we should go ahead and implement this process for the fall 2023 funding round on a trial basis, using the projects that Laura described this evening. The in-design projects are the projects we'll consider. It's a good opportunity to test this process and see how it works. And we would then encourage ArNAC members as we walk through this process over the next 3 or 4 months to provide feedback through the December funding round and make any tweaks, changes that we need to. To do this, we would need to establish a project evaluation team at next month's meeting. And probably what the executive committee will do is we will work to put together a funding team before that, because we don't want to surprise anybody at the October meeting. We want to be able to notify people ahead of time. And as you remember, we have of that 5.3 million that Steve identified, 1 million of that is set aside during this cycle for equity projects. And so we want to keep those on a separate track for the remainder of this CIP cycle until we've distributed that 1 million in equity projects. And then we'll merge it back in to the project selection process where equity will be a factor in multiple times. Next slide. So what we want to do is conduct a survey, and this is an action item for all of you. And I guess we'll send an email out to you to talk about it. But we want a survey on the proposed points categories and ask for your recommendations on point values or rank ordering or whatever. And we'd probably like those back by October 1st so we can talk about it at the October ArNAC meeting. The plan would be to implement the new points categories and values for the spring 2024 funding round, but we'll make sure that none of the existing projects in the queue will be penalized during this transition. So we want to make sure that somebody who's worked long and hard to get to the top of the list doesn't all of a sudden run into a problem because we've changed the system in the middle of the game here. After the fall funding round, ArNAC and the staff will explore organizing the existing projects in the queue into categories, such as type of project, scope of project, cost of project, to see if it makes any sense to have different tracks for different types of projects. We don't know if that makes sense at this time. So we want to kind of just, once this fall funding round is over and we have a chance to breathe, we want to kind of look at the projects that are left and say, if we organize them into these kinds of categories, is there a different path we might want to walk along? And then, as I said, this is for capital projects. We will work on a proposed process for selecting non-capital projects when the staff is ready to talk about the expanded project types. Okay, next chart. So these are just some thoughts that came out of this process of putting this together. The project queue, I mean, if we use the points as strictly a prioritization process and focus the points categories on neighborhood participation in the process and equitable distribution of projects, we might be able to try some, look at how the project queue works a little differently. Right now, you can't get points unless you've identified a project. But maybe there's a possibility of neighborhoods getting points without a specific project being identified if they're participating in planning or they haven't been awarded projects recently. And that might also give the neighborhoods a chance to substitute projects in the queue without penalty if they haven't reached the like in design phase or something like that. It just gives us a little more flexibility to reward neighborhoods that are doing planning and letting them gain equity in the process, even if they don't have a specific project in mind at the moment. Something to think about. Next chart. One of the options that it might allow us to do is to make the petitioning process more of a civic association function. Right now, the petitioning process is a dead stop if you don't pass the petitioning process. But maybe we could make the petitioning process more of a civic association process where they could decide whether they want to override the results of the petitioning process. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, because
You're doing great.
My screen just, I'm sorry, my screen just went blank. So hang on a second here. I guess it was resting too long. Okay, sorry. Hey, so we could change the petitioning process from a gate to a qualification factor, basically. It's just something to consider. And do we want to implement a similar type of survey for parks projects? And then the last thought, again, not critical, but do we want to, instead of calling people block representatives, do we want to change it to civic association project representatives and require it for all types of projects, not just sidewalk projects? So just some thoughts. So next slide. The desired outcomes for trying this process out would be to support the goals to expand the scope, diversity, and distribution of Arlington neighborhood projects, to provide more opportunity for ArNAC members to participate in the program, to strengthen the knowledge of ArNAC members about programs and projects, to provide the ArNAC members with sufficient detail about the programs so they can communicate more effectively with their civic associations, and to improve the documentation of how we select projects, create a better audit trail, provide better information on the benefits of each project, and provide better information so we can communicate externally about the impact of the program to the county leadership and the public. That was kind of what I wanted to say. We would like to go ahead and basically test this out and put together a project team and start using this for the fall funding round.
So David, do you want to just open it up to questions at this
Sure.
point?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and raise your hand if you have a question. They're stunned by the presentation.
Is that or totally confused?
Yeah. Okay, Sarah. See, Sarah, you're on mute, but go ahead.
Okay, well, okay, I'm gonna throw this out. This may sound like a bombshell, but you know, most neighborhoods have to wait. You know, you go through iterations before you get up far enough the queue that you're in the running. And I'm wondering what the impact will be if you're a neighborhood that you're near the top and we start this new process and suddenly you get kicked down. You're at a disadvantage because of this new system. There's going to be a lot of hard feelings about that. And I just wonder about that.
No, but
I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, no, but that's why I said as we transition, we're not going to penalize people. I mean, we've been reaching down deep into the queue as it is the last couple of funding rounds, but now the intent is not.
Yeah, but usually we reach down in the queue because projects didn't get their approval from their neighborhood, or they've been delayed for one reason or another. It wasn't because of the points, it was because of other reasons that we ended up reaching farther down the queue. And, you know, my neighborhood is one of the neighborhoods that benefited from that in the past because we were ready. You know, we were kind of shovel ready on a project, and even though it was farther down the queue, it got picked up because the people above us in the queue weren't quite ready. And so that can happen. You know, I admire your work on this. I'm just wondering how it's going to work in reality.
Hey, Sarah, this is John Kirkpatrick. What I'm hearing David say, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, but projects that have points at the top of the queue now under the new system would be grandfathered in. So they would not be moved down in the queue as a result of switching to the new system.
Okay, yeah. Well, if we're gonna evaluate things along different tracks, what does that mean? Does that mean that like street projects will be devalued, or you know, park projects will be ahead in the queue? I mean, I don't understand how that affects the decision making.
It shouldn't affect the decision making. I mean, for example, I think that for this funding round, the one upcoming, what we're trying to do is document that we have a thorough and meaningful process that is not just points based, so that we can, when we go out to the public, we can show that we've selected projects based on need. I mean, I don't think
this is a very tough problem.
Yeah,
it's a tough problem.
And Sarah, I would just add, this is Kathy. You know, as John emphasized and David said in his presentation, we know we're going through a transition here, and we'll work very hard to make sure that neighborhoods are not penalized as we go through this transition of one approach to another. But I will say that we've kind of been doing a variation of this all along for more than just a couple of funding rounds. Ever since, well, my recollection is ever since we had the reduced funding, we've had to kind of make a pick and choose selection of things to fund. And we're not advocating going back to that, but we're advocating having a rational process that we document and we can explain how we're selecting the projects to be funded. So we'll just have to try this out, you know, and see how it goes.
Listen, I'm not trying to be negative. I admire this work, and you know, it's a valiant effort, and I look forward to seeing how this unfolds.
Yeah,
and
thanks, Sarah.
I mean, as much, this is as much a documentation of what we've kind of been doing the last year or two as it is a new process. It's just, we really haven't been defining our process very well over the last year or two. And I think this is a way of trying to say, this is kind of what we've been doing in a way. But one, we want to give ArNAC members more opportunity to get involved and have input into the discussions. Right now, the way things work, if somebody has an issue, it kind of throws a wrench into things because we're trying to approve a project at the last minute. And so we're trying to keep the knowledge base of the ArNAC members about different kinds of projects high, so that as we go into the final decisions, everybody knows what we're doing. And there's a clear documentation and a justification and a record trail for it. It's not really as much different from what we've been doing as it is formalizing it and documenting it for the public and for each other, and getting ourselves as individual members, more involved in the discussion, having a better discussion about projects. It's like, I mean, Eileen keeps asking for the project list. We want to get to the point where we're talking about projects a lot in our meetings. So I'm sorry, there are other questions.
Yeah, there are. Bill, we have the 4 questions. Let's see, Bill, go ahead, please.
Have to push all the right buttons. Typically, in past NC projects, we have worked with parks and good old DES for almost all of our projects. To be very frank, my civic association doesn't give a doggone. The vast majority of the people don't give a doggone and don't even know what neighborhood conservation is and doesn't care. And so you find people who get flipped off about what's happening on their street or a park close to them, and they start pushing it if at all possible. Where I'm going is there a way that we can involve the county departments like DES or parks to look at what is in our civic associations and say, what are and come back to us and say, what are the issues that really need to be looked at, and try to come up with some degree of priority countywide rather than just look at it from a civic association wide, or better or more appropriate, what I want this month or this year because I got interested in this.
You know, I can't answer that question. Laura or somebody from staff would have to answer it. But the only thing I'll say about that is that may be a very valid question, but that's not what we're about. I mean, we're about neighborhoods. So we really should be focused on the broader needs of all our neighborhoods, and increasing the involvement of neighborhoods and making it less of a, this is my street, so I want it kind of thing. As to what other things can happen, I'd leave that to Laura or somebody to answer.
Yeah. I can add something with that, Bill. You know, we, through the implementation framework that we've started, we have begun reaching out to staff in different departments and divisions, and having some conversation with what their interests are, what their values are, what how they use the plans, and then what can they contribute to a neighborhood, working through assessing what type of projects they need for where they live. So we do want to see that evolve over time. We're not there yet because we just, the program hasn't been set up to work that way so much. But, as an aside to all of this, you all are always, you have access to the different departments yourself. So you can always reach out to, say, the police department and say, we'd really like someone to walk with us through our neighborhood and talk to us about where we can make some improvements to safety in terms of crime and those sorts of things, and turn that into a project. And you can do the same with some of the park staff. So they're, transportation, that's always available to you.
And I want to be very serious here for a minute. David, thank you for spending your time and effort in an almost impossible task. You've done a marvelous job. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill. Let's go to Tom. See, Tom, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get off mute there. Yeah, was, David, I want to illustrate what Bill said. I think this is a great plan. I think it is trying and made every effort to make it transparent, thoughtful, and trying to take into account many different things. I think we've all been asked to comment on a couple of the slides. I think we should all take our homework and do that and get our comments back to Kathy and David over the next couple of weeks. And that would include any concerns you have or whether you think this is going to work or not. I think we should get all those comments and have a conversation next month about how we're going to implement this. But I think it's a great job, David. And I think the only thing I would suggest is on one of the slides, I'll send you my comments about some of these things. On your point slide, I think you should have a set number to break those out, like either 100 or 150. That way you always have a target number.
That's fine. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, please offer that kind of suggestion.
But I think it's a great job. I think it's transparent. I think what you said before earlier about making this process as transparent as possible to the county is very important for us, so that we never get caught into the, well, you did my neighborhood versus I did your neighborhood. So well done.
Thank you. But thank all of you, because a lot of the ideas came from you all. So I won't take credit for that. So.
Okay, looks like David has a question.
Hi, yeah, I've got some questions and comments. I mean, I think the first big question I've got is, okay, it's, you know, I reread this thing now a couple of times. I didn't see anything in here at all that focused on what it is we're trying to fix. What's the specific problem that needs fixing? I mean, there certainly are problems that need fixing. I mean, the example from tonight's earlier discussion was that, hey, we've got these half a dozen projects that have been stuck at the top of the list, and, you know, we're getting queued up for the next funding round. We're still not 100% sure, you know, which of these are actually gonna move. And to me, the number one problem that needs fixing, I mean, there are two big ones. The first one is that it's just taken us forever to get these projects done. I mean, that's just, you know, it's just a sad state of affairs that has been around now for several years, and a lot of it's been outside of our control. But there are some things that are within our control, and the number one thing that I think needs fixing is this whole question, which you've highlighted quite effectively. Okay, what's the role of the civic association versus the people on the block? And it is important to do a petition, to have something in the process for sidewalks particularly that does continue to require a petition. But doing the final petition so late in the process is just a killer, because, you know, you always have these, you know, this small handful of minority homeowners that are going to use that opportunity for whatever purpose they see fit. And by then it's really too late, you know, and that's the thing that's broken, I think, is that we get projects that end up at the top of the list that just get stuck there because we didn't do the good review early. And then we still have this requirement, this longstanding existing requirement for the formal petition at the, you know, so late in the game. And we just need to work through that. That's the number one thing that we need to resolve is, okay, what are we going to do with the petitioning processes? And you know, what's the role of the homeowners versus the civic association? And, you know, to me, you know, I've been doing this a long time. I for all the years that I've served on this committee, I can't think of a single project that we funded that I wish we hadn't. Okay, can anybody in this group think of a single project that we funded that we should not have? Okay, what I see wrong with your document is that every place where you talk about the county, the program, in the neighborhood, not in one of those instances did you put the neighborhood as the first in the selection of the projects. And why are we changing that? I mean, this program has always been about projects that the neighborhood is selecting. Okay?
Please don't read anything into that. That's just sloppy construction on my part. It's not.
Well, yeah,
there's no intent behind it.
No, I understand that, and I'm not suggesting that, but I think it's important for us to remember our roots and our focus. Okay, And I think before we get too far down this path of making changes, we need to really identify as clearly as we possibly can what it is we're trying to fix. For better or for worse, I was around when we did the last big change, which is in 2005. And that's because we had terrible cost overruns. And those overruns were in large part due to our point system at that time. And you've got some things in this proposal that would really put those markers back into play. It's like giving points without having a project. We never ever want to do that, okay? Because if somebody builds up enough points and they can jump ahead of projects that have been on the list, that's gonna really create problems. I mean, a big part of why we adopted the weighting in line system, there were really two reasons. One is it's eminently fair. Everybody has the same opportunity to get funded, and that clearly should not be dismissed or minimized. Anybody that thinks that our program is unfair doesn't really understand how it works. This weighting in line system that we have is by definition as fair as it can be. Okay, you don't need a pet committee to override that, because it really is as fair as it can be. The other reason we went with this current system so many years ago is that it provides visibility. It provides advanced notice to DES that they shouldn't be paving a street when, hey, we may be ripping that street up in a couple of years because this neighborhood's got a ArNAC project in the queue. Okay, so that visibility is very, very important in the perspective of the overall needs and processes of the county. So I mean, there are a couple of really important reasons to keep an emphasis on a waiting in line kind of system.
Hey, David.
That's it. Yep.
Thank you for all the comments. We've got a couple more people. We'll take two more questions.
Kathy? Kathy, this is John. I just had a couple responses to David's comments too, if that's okay.
Okay, sure.
David, thanks a lot. That's a lot of thought and a lot of experience with that. And I think to your one comment about neighborhood participation, neighborhoods still have to give us their priority projects, and what we're doing here are a point system for the priority projects that the neighborhoods have submitted. So, I mean, there could be maybe a difference there if we were to allow neighborhoods to accumulate points without having a project, but that's something that David is asking for feedback on. And the other thing, just in case anyone is a little confused, I want to make sure people understand that we're just looking at the points, but the petitioning is something we will be looking at in the future. So I just want to make sure people keep the points and the petitioning separate, because they're serving two different functions.
Okay, thanks, John. Let's see, I think Alex, you're next.
Yes, thank you. First is David. I just want to thank you for all, David Libman, I want to thank you for all the huge amount of work you're doing and all the thought you're giving, all the feedback you're incorporating from people. Yeah, I just had two comments really. One, in response to Sarah's comment, I think Sarah actually makes a pretty good point that if like after you adopt the new point system, if you, let's say you adopt it like in a couple months, and then if you put it in place for the June funding round, then probably some neighborhoods are going to have projects that are going to go up, and others are going to have projects that are going to go down in the queue. And the other option is to just basically like grandfather the current point system and keep all the projects that have already been proposed in that system until those projects are pretty much exhausted by either being funded or by failing the petition process. And then for all the new projects, you would use the new point system, and it might be like 5 years before you actually start using it if you do that. So I'm not sure what the answer is, but I think those are the two choices. I mean, maybe when you figure out what the new system is, you'll see that projects don't really go up and down that much under the new system, so that might make it simpler. But I do think it is kind of a difficult issue. The other thing I wanted to respond to was the other David's comment on whether whether neighborhoods should get funding for, even if they haven't identified a new project, for like being in the process of discussing a new project while they don't have one in the queue. And I actually think it's a good idea to allow neighborhoods to at least accumulate points when they're in the process of picking a new project. Because we've got one project that's about to be funded, hopefully, and we're working on selecting the next one. And there's really a lot of debate and division among our committee about what to select. And we're waiting for various types of information, some which we're waiting for more from the county that we're not getting yet. I know staff are really busy and backed up in some cases. So we want to make sure we pick the right project, but we also have at least the way the current system works, like if our current project gets funded in December, we have to pick our new project by November 15th to maximize our points. So we're kind of facing pressure to make a decision, but also we want to make the right decision. So I think to increase the odds that the right projects will be picked and that they'll have long-term support from the neighborhood and that they'll pass eventually, I think the idea of letting neighborhoods accumulate points for the time period when they're working on picking a project is a good one. So yeah, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. The other other reason for that as well is that we don't want, I mean, over time, some of these projects take 5 to 7 years to get funded, and the neighborhood changes, the street changes over time. So the closer we can get the projects to the time when they might be executed, might be worth thinking about. Sorry, Kata, whoever's next.
Let's see. Eileen has a question. Thank you, Alex. Go ahead,
Hey,
Eileen.
so I'm really happy that we have people with lots of historical knowledge, but I'd like to remind us all that we have lots of new members, even somebody who's been around a long time like I have. I've never been through a petitioning process, never had a block captain on anything. So there's elements of what are considered the current program that I've never seen in action, that I have no idea how they work. And to try and make recommendations on how to change them becomes really difficult. So I think we also want to make sure that the newer members are able to just speak sort of in a generic way about, well, here's things that we think would work well for our neighborhood, and they're not necessarily going to have the experience with however the current program worked when there was more money and less time between nominating a project and getting it to work.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see, I think we're getting pretty close to the end of the time here. I guess I would just add, and David, maybe you want to reemphasize this too. Your comments are welcome, and we'll send out the survey about the points, prioritization of categories and values and the ranking, etc. And all of any other comments that you want to submit, of course, are welcome. So it's been a good discussion, and I guess I want to add a lot of thanks to David for really hard and thoughtful work on this process and incorporating all the input that you guys have provided over many months, and looking forward to moving ahead with this. So David, do you want to say anything in closing here?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is I think this fall gives us a good opportunity to test something, because the projects that Laura showed earlier on the list, the first 5 or 6 projects, it kind of gives us a good test bed to try this out and see what works and see what doesn't work. And if something doesn't work, then we'll tweak it or play with it, to address the concerns of the membership about fairness and all that sort of stuff. But I think we need to try something to address some of the issues that were in the in the report. And I hope this will do some of that.
Yeah, thanks, David. And I noticed that Cliff made a comment in the chat that program review document is a great source for all members, whether you're new or you've been on the committee for a long time, about what the perceived weaknesses of the program were, what the strengths are, and what the recommendations from the program review are attempting to address. And that's really what our recommendations are addressing as well. So spend some time on that.
Yeah, and I would just say, part of what we're trying to do here is have a good documentary record of why we picked the projects we did, and overcome that perception that it's just a few loud people trying to get their way, and make it no, this is something that's well thought out, well considered, and in the best interest of the county as a whole, so as well as the neighborhoods.
Okay, let's see. I think we'll close here. We're getting pretty close to 9 o'clock, and just want to thank everybody again for attendance and a good discussion. And watch for the email asking for further input. Send any comments you have. Those will be welcome, and we'll forge ahead kind of with some of these changes as we progress to the end of the year. So thanks, everybody.
Just one comment. It was the last meeting I had a comment about the selection criteria for the plants, and I said not to, don't use the grasses. And then I sent a message to Kathy Reeder, and we never got back on this. And so when do we discuss that? Kathy may have want to say something about that, but I never got any response or whatever. Yeah,
Bernie, actually, I do owe you a response to that, and I apologize. We'll talk about that when we talk about the expanding the project types, that discussion. So that's coming up next month.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but thank you, and I apologize. I do owe you a response there.
Okay. Kathy, this is John. I just like to make a plug for the points review committee that David was talking about. If you are interested, please email me, because I'll be chairing it. We can't guarantee that you would be picked, because we want to make sure we have an equitable representative distribution of the neighborhoods. But I think it would be helpful to us know heads up if you are interested in doing that. And I'll drop my name in the chat before signing off, my email in the chat.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, David, and thanks to Laura, Chickway, and staff for all the information you guys provided. I think we're making strides on getting back on track with presenting information about projects that we used to do on a more routine basis. So we're happy to be moving in that direction. See, Chickway or Laura, and do you guys want to add anything? Oh, whoops, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. I just want to thank David again, as others have, for all your work on this. I mean, this has been a huge task, but I think it's generated a lot of discussion, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the results and how it can improve the process for the program. So thank you.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Sorry, Laura, go ahead.
No. I was just going to echo what Chickway said. I mean, and also Kathy and John. I mean, all three of you with David, you guys have just been tremendous in terms of thinking things through and being so responsive to trying to engage everyone and keep people involved and aware of things and keep all this whole process moving forward. So it's, a lot more to come. So we're excited.
Okay, on the word excited, we'll close the meeting for tonight. Thank you all. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Chickway, don't forget to hit stop record.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.